I was going to start out I actually had something prepared to bring with me and left it because I was trying to get everybody together before I left this morning and left it at the house. But if you can picture in your mind a jar with a small opening to the jar and then a bigger kind of a space inside the jar, like a big pickle jar. You know, you got a whole lot of pickles in it. And a banana in the jar. And the jar is bolted down over here, okay? And you got a monkey who's kind of the leader of his clan of monkeys. And he's out looking for food for his monkeys because they are hungry. They've got an unmet need of food. And so he's out looking for this food for his little clan of monkeys. And so you picture in your mind that this monkey's sitting there with his hand in the jar. He finally found a banana, and he puts his hand in the jar, and he's trying to pull the banana out. But every time he grasps hold of the banana won't come out because the jar opening is small. And as long as he's holding onto it like that, and the jar won't move, so he's stuck there like that. And then you picture him sitting there trying to pull that banana out, all right? And then his families of monkeys his community all comes around, and they want that banana, and he can't get the banana out to give them the banana. And then all of a sudden they see all these other bananas over there, and he spots them. There's a whole pile of them way over there, but he can't get them to go over and get the bananas that are just lying over there because he's still trying to get the one out of the jar. And in order to be able to go over there and say, come on, follow me, I'll take you to where there's a whole grove of bananas over here, he has to let go of the banana that he found in the jar first before he can lead his monkeys over there to find the whole bunch of them that are lying there free for the taking. And then while he's sitting there still trying to get that monkey out, there's hyenas that come. And they're the enemy, and they're going to get him. And he's trying to get his community of monkeys to run, but they're still waiting for him to get that banana out because their number one thing is they're hungry, and they want that banana. So they're unaware of the fact that this danger is encroaching in on them, and they can't run from the danger or ward off the danger or even resist the danger because what they're focused on is their leader who's still sitting there with his fist in the jar holding onto the banana. And I guess the reason that I'm telling this story is because I think that when I think of letting go and letting God in my very long years of kind of walking this journey with God, what I've found is that there's really only one way to help somebody else let go and let God and avoid the destruction that happens when you can't let go, and to get the plenty that God can give you when you can't let go of what you found yourself to satisfy your unmet needs, and that is to learn how to let go yourself as a leader. And so I think that there's certain issues that we need to let go of as a leader in order to be able to really lead our communities, because I think that's who we are. That's who this network thing is for. We've got to learn how to be leaders and let go of our bananas in the jars that we found on our own that we think will meet those unmet needs, and our effort to meet the unmet needs and to control the situation and fix the situation and fix our community and fix all the problems for everybody that's coming to us, expecting us to lead. Meanwhile, we're stuck with our own stuff that we haven't let go of. And so we can't walk alongside of anybody because we're stuck with our own stuff that we can't let go of. And then when we finally, if we can let go, what we really need to do is walk ahead of the people that we're leading. And that I think is one of the first things that I think is hard for us as leaders to let go of, is wanting to be just one of the bunch. Want to belong as buddies, as friends with everybody that I'm ministering to, with everybody that I'm leading. I want to belong. I want to fit in. And one of the ways that I've kind of discovered that was looking at my own stupid self, because for a long time, I really, really refused to lead. When I started Place of Promise, for the first 3 years, the first year, I was determined to find somebody else to lead. And I went all over the country looking for somebody else to lead and take on the role of being the leader, because I didn't want to be the leader. I didn't see myself as being a leader, but evidently God did. So when God chooses us and calls us to lead, one of the things that I found hard to let go of was that being a leader means you're up here out front. It doesn't mean you're better than, it doesn't mean you're smarter than, but it means God chose you to lead. And when you're still sitting there holding on to the banana in the jar, trying to meet the needs of the people that God called you to minister to, you can't lead them because you're still sitting there with your hand in the jar, holding on to that banana, and they're all crowded around waiting for you to meet their needs. Meanwhile, you haven't led them to the living waters or the abundant life that God has for them, because you're still stuck back there trying to be part of the bunch. And for 3 years, I tried to be part of the bunch. I was determined that I wasn't going to be the leader, and so what I tried to do was say, okay, we're all going to lead. The volunteers, the staff, we're all co-leaders. We're all just co-workers here, and there's no leader. It's kind of like if you've had the experience of having a lot of children, it's kind of like you and your children all leading together, all having, my husband was famous for saying, this is not a democracy. I'm the patriarch here, and you're going to follow what I say. Because one of the things that happens when everybody's leading is that nobody knows where to go. You have chaos and you have confusion, which is what happens in the dysfunctional world that we live in right now. We've eliminated God, and we've eliminated the followers of God, and then because we as leaders sometimes don't want to let go of belonging and fitting into the bunch and go out and be willing to walk alone sometimes, we are incapable of leading. Sometimes we want everybody to like us. We want everybody to feel like I fit into the bunch. I'm trying to figure out if anybody's been there besides me by looking at your faces. I actually think that that's one of the reasons why this whole network for leadership, for people, individuals and organizations that are building disciples, one of the really hard things about building a disciple is that you've got to be a leader. You've got to be a leader. If you can't separate from the newborns and the children who just came into the faith, or even those who haven't come into walking with God yet on that journey, if you can't lead, if everything is always, let's do this together, let's fit in, let me hear your ideas, is kind of, I think, a little bit about what you were talking about your groups, where everybody comes in with their advice, everybody comes in with their ideas, and nobody's idea is what we're going to be able to follow, because we're all sitting there with our hands in the jar. And maybe my jar is a dysfunctional family. Maybe somebody else's jar is the abandonment that I had as a child. Maybe somebody else's jar is the shame that I'm still entrapped in, or the substance abuse that I'm in bondage to. But unless I can let go of my banana, pull my hand out and go and get the abundant life that God has for me, and let the other ones say, oh, wait a second, she did it. She let go and follow me, and are willing to follow me and act like they trust me, that I know the way to this abundant supply that you were talking about, that God has the power to give us. I can't lead until I am willing to let go of that need to be liked, that need for their approval, that need for their acceptance, that need to fit in, and I'm allowing myself to get to the place where I may actually walk alone sometimes because I'm the leader. Not because I'm better than anybody else, but because that's what God asked me to do. And I think that we find that with Jesus all the time. He was constantly having to go off by himself and be with God. And right in Mark chapter 14, verse 50, it's talking about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. And when they came to arrest him, that one little verse says, and they all ran off and left him all alone. And I remember reading that verse, and that was really important for me to read, because it was then that I started to understand that I had to let go of my resistance to be the leader and walk alone sometimes. If I didn't let go, I couldn't lead, and if I didn't lead, the place of promise was never going to get anywhere. You might as well stay in the street. You might as well just be out there in your whole big mess if that's what you're going to do, because that's the whole nature of building disciples, is you walk with me and I lead the way. Jesus led his disciples, and they became disciples because they followed him. They were the followers, and that's what we have, but we expect our followers to one day become leaders. And the only way we're going to show them how to do that is to let go of that need to belong and fit in ourselves. We've had Place of Promise interns now, and they were residents, and they were the followers, and they had to follow the leaders. Now they're sort of in that in-between stage where they aren't residents and they aren't quite leaders yet. And they really struggle. Number one struggle is, where do I fit in? I don't fit in with the residents anymore, because the residents see me as belonging over here with the leaders. But the leaders don't totally take me in yet, because I'm not quite the leader yet. So where do I fit in? And unless I as a leader am aware of that struggle and aware of how that feels to have to let go of fitting in to the bunch. All of a sudden, I used to be one of the ones sitting in the kitchen gossiping about everything that was going on in the house. Now I walk in the kitchen and everybody gets quiet. And what do I do with that? I don't like that feeling. Nobody likes that feeling. So unless somebody helps me and talks to me about it and says, you know what, I let go of that banana. I needed to fit in. I needed to feel like I was one of the bunch too. But I let go of it, and I walked behind God. And now we have this group of leadership coming together, where we can all come together and say, yeah, I remember feeling like that. I was the Mother Teresa of Dorchester and Roxbury for a long time, 22 plus years, and everybody liked me. But then you become the leader of a bunch of very dysfunctional, sick people, and nobody likes you anymore. They'll only like you while they want something from you and want to control you. One of the things that I think as leaders that we need to understand is that they're incapable of really mature, God-like love, choosing what's best for somebody else as a newborn. It's kind of like as a newborn, as a new follower of Jesus, as a newborn believer, it's like a newborn kid. A little kid loves you and everything's all happy as long as they're getting their own way. But as soon as you say no, as soon as you say don't do that, as soon as you make them sit in timeout or something, they don't like you anymore. Right? And unless I let go of my need for them to make me feel important, my need for them to make me feel valuable, my need for them to approve of me, then I'm going to be in trouble, because I can't lead until I let go of all my needs and find my needs met through the other leadership that I get together with on a regular basis and God. I got to find my value. I've got to find my worth. I've got to find my approval. I've got to find that God is pleased with me, and if everybody else isn't right now, that's okay. Because what they're going to think is, if you love me, that means I can control you. Okay, that's what the world thinks without God. If I love you, I can control you. And then when they can't control you, they get mad, because they thought when you said I love you and when you were all nice and nurturing and everything, that meant that they could control you. And so the first thing that I think that we need to be careful of is to be willing to let go of that need to be part of, and that need to be affirmed, and that need to feel like I'm doing something noble, I'm doing something great here. And therefore I am maybe more important. I maybe now have value. I maybe now have worth. I got to know I have value and I have worth because God says so. Because I'm created in the image of God. Because God says I'm valuable. Because God is pleased with what I'm doing. And then I need some other leadership who know what I feel like, because I'm still human. You know, I got to lead and at the same time know that I'm a human leader. I'm not God. I'm human. So I got to know that it's still going to be difficult, but I got to have other leaders who can help me with it, so I don't get devastated that today everybody really thought I was the greatest thing in the world, and tomorrow they can't stand me. Okay? The second thing that I think that we need to let go of is our control. We need to let go of me being in the center. I can't take that center space. When I am in the center, my unmet needs become my control, what controls me. And if I still have an unmet need of somebody's approval, if I still have an unmet need of belonging, of fitting in, if I still have an unmet need of being loved, then I am going to be in trouble, because the people I'm trying to lead and the people I'm trying to lead into that abundant life with Jesus Christ are going to have a hard time figuring out why I still have my hand in the jar, holding on to the banana that I say is going to meet my need for love, or my need for approval, or my need for worth. I have to be out of my center, and God has to be my center. If God is my center, then I have worth, I have value, I have affirmation. And with God in my center, and being part of a group of leaders who can all get together and say, okay, there are things that I have to let go of. And the big thing is control. I got to let go of that control. When God's in the center, all the spokes come out of the center of God, right? But when I'm in the center, I'm trying to love people into transforming them. And I keep thinking, if I just love them enough, if I just spend enough time, if I just teach them the right stuff, if I just do the right stuff, if I spend more time, if I really, chase them down the street and run after them when they decide, or if I call them 500 times after they stop showing up to the 21 meetings that they were supposed to come to, and I chase after them, then somehow I am going to convince them. I am going to, and I becomes too much God. And I am the center of my life and what I'm doing. And therefore, I end up getting very angry when I can't control them. I can't make them do what I want to do. And I need to let go of my need to control anybody else, my need to change everybody else, my need to fix it for everybody else. I was the greatest fixer that ever lived. Nurses tend to be that way anyway. And I could fix. I knew how to fix. I knew how to get the best doctors. I knew how to get the best health care. I knew how to get a house. I knew how to get an apartment. I knew how to get housing. I knew how to get furniture, get food, get people hooked up. The homeless guys living on my street. And Domingo taught me that you can do all that stuff, Beth, but you can't transform my heart. You can't change me. The only one I can change is me with God. God changes me to have self-control. But if I start trying to control anybody else, then I'm in real big trouble, because they're in trouble too. Because I'm not going to be able to do it. And I end up thinking that I'm somehow controlling them, but the reality is they're controlling me. Okay, Domingo was out there in the street every day, down in front of my house, banging around at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. He was a paralyzed guy. He got shot in the back when he was like 22 years old. He and I kind of hit Roxbury at the same time. He was in his wheelchair, and he had colostomy and all that stuff. And he would come to my house, and he was one of the first people I met. And he was sitting on the corner with his paper cup asking me for some change. And I told him, and me thinking that I was going to be like Peter at the gate, I said, well, I don't have any money, which was true, I didn't. But if you come to my house, I'll cook you dinner. What I didn't know back then that I know today is that he would arrive at 3 o'clock in the morning wanting me to cook dinner, banging on the door. He actually couldn't reach the door, so he climbed out of his wheelchair, dragged himself up to the front of the house, got the metal trash can lid and was banging on it with a stick, yelling and hollering. And Jeff, my husband, went down and opened the door, and he's like, I'm looking for the lady in the blue car. And he said, well, that's my wife. And he said, well, she promised to cook me dinner if I came to her house. So we carried him in. Jeff carried him in. I cooked him dinner. I undressed and bathed him, bathed his wounds, his bleeding feet where he had been in jail, and all the skin had burned off his feet, and the socks, the urinated socks, were frozen on his feet, and I bathed his feet and showed him the love of Christ. But then as time went on, I wanted to fix things for him because it made me uncomfortable that he was still out in that street. It made me feel like this wasn't right. This wasn't fair. He needed to be in a nice warm apartment somewhere. He needed food. He needed good health care. He needed all these things. And so I was going to fix that. And, you know, he was out there. He was using drugs. He was crazy as a bed bug. But he became what I thought was, you know, my project. I'm going to fix everything for him. And I got him a good, really beautiful handicapped apartment. Got everything. Got furniture from Harvard's dorms because they were clearing out their furniture. Got him all this food that people donated. Stocked up his cabinets, his refrigerator. Got everything for this man. Got him a new wheelchair. You know, it was just an awesome thing that I did for this guy. So I told myself. Got them all down there, drove them down to and it was down in kind of the other end of West Roxbury instead of Roxbury. And got them there at about 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, got them all set up, and I was just thrilled with myself because it was a wheelchair accessible, everything, dishwasher, everything. Gorgeous. 3 o'clock in the morning, guess where he was? Back out in front of my house. He had wheeled all the way back from West Roxbury, back out screaming and yelling, hollering, shouting. I was furious. What are you doing? I got you this beautiful apartment, all this food, all this furniture. What are you doing in front of my house, banging around and messed up again? Why are you here again? And he was, this is where I belong. This is who I am. I can't stay down there. I was lonely. I don't fit in. I don't belong. This is who I am. And I was like, you better go back down there because you don't belong on my front step either. You know, and so he stayed down there for a couple of more weeks. But what he did was he invited the whole street down there and got kicked out 2 weeks after I got him in there. So, but he taught me a really valuable lesson that I needed to let go of my need to fix other people, my need to make it all better, my need to make them all better. You know, most of the people that we are going to interact with are controlled by somebody in a dysfunctional relationship, by substances, by behaviors that they are enslaved to, by false belief systems in their head that they're enslaved to. And if I haven't let go of my stuff, my false belief systems, my junk, I can't help them let go of theirs. And they're going to be just like that community of monkeys waiting for me to get that banana out of that jar while they get attacked, while they get destroyed, and all the time God's abundant life is right there for them to receive. So I've got to keep God in the center. I've got to stop controlling. And we can control in all kinds of ways. We can create dependencies. You know, if somebody needs me every 5 minutes, that's great. They need me. You know, I can't tell you how many times you say, oh, you're really going through a lot. You're really depressed. You're really having a hard time. You can call me. I don't care what time it is. Just call me. If you need to call me, call me. That's what you say the Saturday. By next Saturday, when they've called you 3 or 4 times in the middle of the night and woke your husband up and everything else, then you're like, why are you calling me every night at 2 o'clock in the morning? Well, who told them to? We create the dependency so that we can control them. But we don't really want to look at that sometimes, right? God is our center. And unless I turn all control over to God, including myself, and allow him to empower me to control myself, I will never be able to help somebody else come to believe, as in step 2, when their lives are totally out of control, and then they come to believe that there's a God who can restore their life to sanity. There's a God who can empower them to have self-control. But if I'm steady controlling them and making them dependent on me to get everything organized, to get them to do this, to do this, to do this, then I am wrong, and I will never be able to help them learn self-control. So I need to be able to take myself out of the center, surrender my whole self to God, and I need to keep God in that center. And along with that, I need to be able to confess my sin every single day. I need at some point every day to spend time inventorying myself. What's still going on in my life that's blocking my center connection with God? My central connection with God has to be number one importance to me. My relationship with God. I can't let sin, I can't let my unmet needs that I still am going to have a few of because I maybe have been trying to meet them myself. But I have to be able to do that confession. I have to receive his love, receive his forgiveness. If I don't, I will constantly be teaching what a lot of people believe is that they have to be able to forgive themselves. You know, unless I can receive all that forgiveness, receive all that grace from God, receive those bananas that are stacked up over here because I'm still trying to get my own. I'm still trying to forgive myself. I can't tell you how many every day still in bondage to shame, to guilt, to all kinds of stuff because I just can't forgive myself. Of course you can't. Who ever had a credit card that you owed $5,000 on and decided, I'm going to forgive my debt? Who does that? Nobody does that. The bank has to forgive your debt if anybody does, right? Or you got to pay it back. So the whole thing of paying it back myself, becoming good, doing good, we got to let go of all that stuff. Somehow earning my forgiveness, earning my place with God, earning him as my center. I've got to let go of that and receive his forgiveness, that he paid the debt. And that's the only reason my debt's paid. I can't pay it back, and I am forgiven because I received his forgiveness. And once I receive his forgiveness, then I can forgive. And I can let go of any self-righteousness that I think I've earned by doing all the good things to try to earn my own forgiveness. I got to be able to look at my self-righteousness as probably one of the worst jars I can get my hand stuck in, because my self-righteousness totally prevents me from helping anybody else find their way to God. And I think one of the biggest things that my residents at Place of Promise over the years have said to me over and over again is they can't find love and forgiveness in the church because everybody looks like they don't need it. They look like they're already perfect. They look like everybody's happy, like nobody has issues, nobody has problems, nobody has guilt and shame because everybody comes to church looking like they've all got it together. And if I'm doing that as a leader, then where am I leading them? I'm leading them to gather around me with my hand still stuck in the jar. Right? I'm not leading them to a risen Savior. I'm not leading them to the fountain of grace. I am not doing the right thing. Jesus had that rich young ruler come to him. Right? The rich young ruler came to him, and he says, the rich young ruler turned and walked away. And it says in Luke's account of it that Jesus looked at him with love, but he let him walk away. Again, that control. We want to save people so bad from their mess, get them out of their mess, help them so bad, especially for me, the hardest thing is when there's children involved. It's so hard to not meddle in God's affair. Only God can change the heart. Only God can transform any of us. It took God to transform me. Why am I thinking that I can transform somebody else? And to stand there, it's like standing on a dock sometimes. And that's where I think we need the network of leadership also, because when I let go of the people that are still not ready to change, to let God remove their defects, to let God forgive them, to let God take control of their lives. They're not ready yet, but I want them to be ready because I see them on the edge of the dock. It's like standing, you were talking about your visual thing. I do visual stuff all the time, but I often feel like I'm standing on the edge of the dock and they're drowning in front of my eyes, and I'm throwing life preservers and they just don't take them. And for a long time, I would jump in and try to pull them to shore. I would do everything I had to try to convince them to come on, try to convince them that they need help. And they would agree for a little while, you know? But when they teach you life-saving, to be a lifeguard, they teach you swim around and around and around in a circle around the thrashing, drowning person until they stop thrashing, until they stop trying to save themselves and they sink. And once they give up and sink, then I can hook my arm around them and bring them into shore. We don't want to do that. We want to get them out real fast, especially, like I said, if there's children there. And one of the things that we need to let go of is our need to keep saving everybody out of the mess that they're in so it doesn't keep breaking our hearts. And that's where we really need to understand and know that the only comfort we're ever going to get for that is from the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit is the comforter who can heal your broken heart over and over again, because it does break our hearts. And we're not capable of real love until we receive the love from God. And when I finally admit that I can't do anything about my sin except receive that forgiveness, I can't do anything about my own strength and my own power to even control myself except receive it from God, that's when I begin to receive his love in its fullness, and then I can begin to love. And loving my neighbor as I love myself are meet those unmet needs through God, through his love. And loving somebody is a choice. Loving somebody is really choosing what's best, not what's best for me, but what's best for them. And oftentimes, that's going to be heartbreaking for us, because we want to save them. We want to rescue them. We want to be the hero. We want to look like we're doing something good. We want to look like there's success here, but the success can't be measured in the response from the person we're trying to rescue. Because 9 times out of 10, we might rescue them for a minute, but we can't really rescue anybody. We can build disciples after God transforms them. Okay. Let me see. There was the one final thing I wanted to say is we have no control over the response of the individual that we're trying to help. You know, and we, how many times have you ever said to yourself, well, I don't want to bother taking them here, or I don't want to do that because I don't want to confront them about this or that, because what if it makes them really angry and they just take off and run? Let me not say anything for a while and see if we can't kind of hook them for, if we can't keep them around till maybe the transformation happens. Keep them around long enough. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with that. Or maybe sometimes the other night I did not want to go to Asbury Grove. I did not want to go. I was so tired, and the thought of driving everybody out to this place to hear this preacher, I was like, and Terry and I were talking about it, we were like, they're probably all going to sit there and sleep anyway. They're going to complain about the bugs. They're going to argue about the fact that there's mosquitoes biting them, and they don't like the food, and they don't like this, and they don't like that, so why bother? Because I was looking for a reason to why bother. But what I said was, though, and I kind of have to say this to myself frequently these days, is I got to do what God called me to do. I got to do the next right thing, whether they respond the way I want them to or not. And maybe they won't respond the way I want to. Maybe it's like the seed that I planted in the ground that I keep running out and looking at every day, and it doesn't look like it's growing. And so what do? I dig it back up and throw it away, or I stop watering it, or I stop, paying attention to it. I can't do that. I got to keep doing the next right thing as a leader. Okay. Question? Do we have time for questions?
What happened that night?
Probably enjoyed it.
Oh my goodness, we went and they had an altar call. The lady was fantastic. They had an altar call at the end, and every single resident went up front.
I think every event we plan to do, it's like before they say, I don't want to do this. But because you have it on the schedule, you do it, and great things happen. If you go by your emotions, forget it, you'll never do anything.
Right. Or if you go by what you think they're going to respond to.
Or how they'll respond.
Right.
Because we usually say they're going to be grumbling and all this stuff. No, but it was good.
More questions, and if it's a question that has like a theme for both, they can both answer that.
I think by far the battle of ministry is not the people you work with, it's you. I mean, that's where the stuff takes place.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's,
And I do think that the battle can feel very lonely sometimes. And that's why I think this network thing is really important, because we all go through exactly the same thing, because we're all so human, Our problems, as you said, are not unique. We are, but our problems are, the teenagers think they invented all the issues, but my residents think they did. But really, honestly, we all have the same issues.
I think, Bill, what you said too, with the relationships, because I bet if you looked at people that, burn out, drop out of ministry or whatever, I don't think it's because of their workload, it's because of unsettled relationships, whether with God or with others.
With yourself.
It's hard to work when that's happening,
I can see burnout coming from the idea you're looking for a response.
Mm-hmm.
You want to see what the outcome is. And
Well, people ask you about that all the time. So how did so-and-so turn out? How did so-and-so turn? How did your kids turn out, Beth? I keep telling everybody my kids aren't cakes. They didn't turn out. They're still on a journey just like everybody else.
Well, you said something really important about that our success can't be based on their response.
Right.
And we're in the middle of, every ministry does this every year. We have our annual reviews and reports, and you look at it and you're like, man, what a failure. You start looking over your schedule, and it's like, no, but I met with thousands of people, and we did all it. But the result, the bottom line is always what donors and supervisors in the head office really want to see. And they miss the length it takes to swim around that person thrashing in the water. That's critical ministry that's happening.
Absolutely it is.
That's part of getting them to move their dependence on the Christ and away from me.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't get counted.
That's right.
And we got to figure that out.
That's right.
It's really huge. It's hard.
I think for me, reading this book called Something Beautiful for God that Mother Teresa wrote years ago, I read that. And she talked about the fact that so many people criticized her ministry because the need in Calcutta was so huge. How, what she was doing was like a drop in the bucket. And she said, yeah, but that drop is worth everything to God.
Yeah.
some people, we have to swim around and we get tired and need somebody else to keep swimming because they're still thrashing.
You need a team of like
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
We do. And I think that as leaders, we need to know that because we want to be the one that gets to pull them in,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
Thank you both for sharing.
I need my approval. You better find it.
We love you, Beth.